Well, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me again. This is our second time chatting, so I'm excited. I feel like this is a continuation of the last time.
Okay.
But before we dive in deep, I did want to ask you a question as a follow-up. Are you still talking with NASA about sending poets into space, or is that still something that's interesting? Interests you?
I think that I sincerely think should be done, but the answer to that is going to be no, and I'll show you why. And I don't know if you can see it, but
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Nice
Dr.
picture.
Yeah, he's no longer. Well, this is the first Black man who ran NASA, and he no longer does because Donald Trump got rid of everybody, as you know. I have a photograph of him right on the of this. This sits on my desk here. I am sincerely hoping, Charles Bolton. I am hoping we'll see what Biden, between Biden and Harris, what they're doing, because Biden has been balancing, as you know, his cabinet and the people around him. And I'm really hoping that they take space seriously, which I think, and I say they, I mean, Senator, well, I was about to say Senator Harris, but Vice President Harris also. I think they take it seriously. And I think that we being the United States is going to once again pick up the space program. And I know if we do, it's very, very important for Black Americans, and particularly Black youngsters, to be involved. It really is. You always sound like you're just a little crazy, or you've been drinking just a little too much or something. But we are the people who have already done, in fact, space. You and I have talked about, I remember when I saw your face, we talked about, I mean, the whole idea of being enslaved is a level of space. We've come through Middle Passage. We've been pushed around in many, many ways. And I think that Black youngsters ought to be and really must be involved, because somewhere in our blood, there's this idea. We know that whatever it is we meet in outer space, we've already met in inner space, because we've already lived with, now, of course, the Donald Trumps or the KKK or Jim Crow. We've lived with aliens. So we know that whatever is out in space can be no more dangerous or no more evil. Actually, they probably are friendly, because where are you from? I'm from third planet. I mean, they can't be any worse than these Nazis that we've had to be bothered with. Look at Trump. You can't get much worse than that.
I want to get your opinion on Trump in terms of the entire election, in terms of right now where we are, him still saying it was voter fraud, him still not conceding. What are your thoughts about that? Or are you surprised, or you're just like, typical?
I gotta say, I am surprised that he has tried to carry us on so long. And I'm not really sure, other than he's trying to build a cult. It's very, very Hitlerish. It's very Nazi-like. And if you're keeping up with the executions, which is a disgrace, he's trying to execute, I think, about 17 people before he leaves office. And he'll be leaving office in a couple of weeks now. I mean, he's on his way. But a part of the reason, or the way that he wants to execute them, is he wants gas chambers, and he wants firing squads. That's very Nazi. So when you say, am I surprised? I think you have to be. I mean, any sane person has to be a little surprised that it has been carried on the way that it does. And I really think that Biden is going to probably, I don't know how to work, but I think that Biden everybody knows that Biden is the president-elect, that he has won the election. And he may have to call on the army to go in and carry Trump out, because Trump is clearly crazy. And if somebody doesn't carry him out, a lot of people are going to be killed, because if somebody had carried Hitler out of it was really the Congress, but my German isn't good. But if somebody had gone in there and said, we got to get this guy out, throw him in a hospital or something. Look at how many millions of people, not just Jewish people, but the people who had to also fight with him or against Hitler, to stop, against the Nazis to stop them from taking over the world. So we had 6 million Jews, but look at the people, the soldiers who had to fight against them. And then look at the people at home who died because they were working on helping the soldiers have to kill, fight the war. And then we look at the Japanese, which I think is also disgraceful. We look because we were angry at the Germans, and then they made the Germans and the Japanese got together, and then we put the Japanese in concentration camps, which of course we as Black Americans understood that because we were already enslaved. And we look at what Trump is doing with the brown people coming in from South America. So, you know, it simply may be that Biden may just wake up one morning and say, you know, I'm the president of the United States. I've taken the oath, and, you know, just stand up and take his oath. You know, I swear for God, I'm going to, you know, it's a simple oath. It's not that difficult. And I am now calling on the army. I'm calling on my general of the army to send his men in and to pick up Trump. Because he's got to be picked up.
Yes, he's creating this false narrative as always and this false reality. But it is some people who still do believe that he won or that there was some kind of fraud, and just seeing him exhaust all the options but still going strong, I'm just like, whoa, this is, yeah.
There were people who believed in Mussolini and Hitler, just for recent people. There were people, if we run it way back a couple of thousand years, who said, give us Barabbas. Jesus was standing there, remember? Pilate said, you know, we have 3 crosses and 4 men, you know, what should I do? And the crowd said, give us Barabbas. Well, Jesus was an innocent man. So if somebody stepped up in the crowd and said, you know, what's wrong with you people? But nobody did. They wanted, yeah, give us Barabbas. Yeah, let's see, let's watch these 3 get killed. Well, you got to stop these people, and you got to stop them now. So I would, and I'm not surprised that people voted for him. If there's a voter fraud, the fraud is the vote for Trump. But because I know that's 70 million people maybe they are crazy, but that doesn't, 70 million is a little, 7,000 I might go for it, but 70 million, I'm not going for it. So I think the fraud is that Donald Trump and the people who fraudulently got him elected in 2016 were trying to do the same thing now. They were just outplayed.
Good point. And with the current election, what were your initial thoughts as you watched the state by state, the results come in? I mean, it took a week, but what were your initial reactions or thoughts? Were you like a bit concerned, or were you like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it?
Oh, I had a glass of champagne. When our polls, I live in Virginia, when our polls closed, I just said, you know, now, Jesus does things in his own way, and as I say, he will not come when you call him, but he always comes on time. And I knew that Jesus knew we needed some help here. So I poured a glass of champagne because I knew that Trump was going to be removed from office. And I knew, it never occurred to me. I said, there were some friends, I said, oh yeah, let's have a glass. Because this was in the bag. It never occurred to me.
Really? I was a bit nervous. And also I like, you know, fully support Biden and Harris, and that's who I wanted to win, but I also didn't want to disappoint myself because I felt like I disappointed myself the last election because I wasn't expecting that. So I was just like, oh, good.
I knew that the Divine 9 were going to come through. I'm a Delta. I don't know what, you know. So I knew that the Divine 9 were not only going to vote themselves, but they were going to bring the people with them. They were going to do what they had to do. And of course, Vice President Harris is an AKA, and, you know, we all make mistakes. Everybody can't be a Delta. I understood that. But as her little sisters as a Delta, because if you recall, you know, the reason we're Deltas, for those of us who are, is that there was a disagreement about voting. And you remember Susan B. Anthony had said, you know, she was not going to march with Black women unless they would march in the back. And the AKAs, rightfully so, they have their own pride, I have no problem with that, said, well, we're not marching in the back. And so the women who made up Delta Sigma Theta said, well, this is more important. It's more important that we vote than where we are. So they got in the back of the line so that we now, and I've been laughing with my AKA friends. I said, y'all owe us because we got in there. But I knew the Divine Nine were going to come through. And I knew that the Black community, we didn't come through because we believed or we hoped. We came through because we knew if we have come through being enslaved, if we have come through being sold, as I say again, Jesus may not come when you want him, because we would have wanted him a couple of 100 years ago, but he always comes on time. I had no question. Jesus will be here and I'm gonna have a drink.
And so you were celebrating with your glass of champagne.
I wouldn't call it celebrating, I'd just call it, and seriously, I wouldn't. I was just saying, no, this is done. I'm gonna have a drink, because he always comes on time. I believed that we were not gonna be, Jesus was not gonna just throw us out.
Right, yeah.
He was gonna come when we needed him, and he did.
Yes, he did. Thank you. And what do you think with Kamala Harris winning the presidential election, her being America's first HBCU graduate to hold this office, what do you think the impacts will have on the narrative around HBCUs?
I hope that one, we need more money, as you know. So, I say I attended Fisk University. Of course, she attended, as do a number of really great people, Howard. But Howard is a federal institution. So Howard has never had the questions and the problems that I attended Fisk University, which was a private institution. So we've always had difficulty with money, or Spelman or Morehouse. And so the private, and I'm not against, again, don't misunderstand, but the federal HBCUs will always get their money. And so we are still we in the Black independent group, we're going to have to still find, there must be some better words than I'm using, but we have to find a way to recreate, this is, I guess, what I'm trying to say, to recreate ourselves. And as a Fiskite, my grandfather went to Fisk. He graduated in 1905. I graduated in 1968. But Fisk is going to have to recreate itself. It cannot be what it was when Grandpapa was there. And I think that the HBCUs, Spelman and Morehouse, who are great institutions no matter how you look at it, they have found a way to move on. They are in line with any other middle, liberal arts school. They're as good as, and I'm not saying Fisk isn't as good as, I'm saying Fisk has stayed in the same place, and it can't do that. There are several other Black schools who have stayed in the same place, and you can't do that. You have to make changes.
Agreed. So what would you say, or what is your thought process around recreating or trying to change? Would you have any suggestions, or have you thought about it, or you're just speaking in general?
I've thought about it and written quite a bit about it. First of all, if I had my way, which I won't, Fisk University should become a part of Vanderbilt University.
You said that before. Yeah.
It's right there. It's right across the street. And I think that Fisk, which is going to be, don't laugh now, should also become a woman's school. Because Spelman, in many respects, has no competition for what it does.
That's a good point.
It does.
And isn't the male enrollment kind of low at Fisk anyway?
Very low.
Okay.
We had 300 and something people last, but Fisk is never going to be able to compete for Black men. It's just not, because Black men who do art can go to, there are too many other Black men who do athletics can go to the big school. We're not. So let it go. Let's go for the Black women. Let's go and see if we can't get Richard Williams to put a tennis team together. See if he can't give us a hand on that. Let's see. And I don't like, by the way, golf. I said to somebody recently, if I could play golf, if I could be president, first thing I do is outlaw golf. But I hate it. You see, everybody says, oh, I'm gonna play golf, it's so stupid. But I would love to see Black women. I'd love to see Black women have a team of golf. And I think that that's something we have to think of, we have to start to think, and culinary, of course, because there's nobody who cooks any better. And we have to find a way to recreate what it is that we offer. If we were just offering those three things, and we could use a basketball team, but we'd have to really compete because there are a lot of schools, including the one where I teach, has good basketball. But if we could offer your tennis and your golf and your culinary, we could compete with any school. We could begin to build the kind of institution that we could find the women that we want. And that's saying that we're not throwing any away, but we could find the women, and we could begin to build a school. And I think that would be really great.
No, that's actually some good ideas.
Oh, Black women can cook, and you really love it, because then we have, for example, as you know, the Jubilee singers, the Fisk Jubilee singers, and somebody will say, well, Nikki, if we do that, what are we going to do with the Jubilee singers? But we're right there in Nashville, which is called Music City because of the Jubilees, because of the Fisk singers. But we have Meharry next door, we have Tennessee A&I, we have Belmont, we have Vanderbilt. We can find the men that we need to bring into the group for our Jubilees. We have the women already. We can find the men. We can do these things. We need to stop thinking about, oh, this is what we used to do, and start to say, well, how do we go forward? And
Right.
Fisk has to go forward. You have to remember Fisk University. I'm not, but Fisk University was the first. It was Fisk College then, that was an gender that had men and women. The schools used to be women's schools and men's schools. Fisk broke that bond and became men and women. And so if that's what we did a little over 100 years ago, then maybe it's time to do something else, to say, okay, let's see what we can do with the women. We have to remember too, that no matter what you hear about, and I don't mean it like that, but no matter what we hear about Tuskegee Institute, which was very great, and you got, Booker T worked really hard on that, and you had George Washington Carver, you had great people, but you have to remember Booker T sent his daughters to Fisk. He did. That's what happened. And so we might now want to begin to make changes. Wouldn't it have been wonderful if we could have had a school that the Obama girls could have come to?
Yes, my friends and I were just talking about that. We like, oh, they should have been at HBCU. My sisters and I, we all went to different HBCUs. So my sister graduated from Fisk. I went to FAMU. My other sister went to Hampton, Howard, and then Texas Southern for law school. So, so we always have a lot of in-depth discussions about the differences in our HBCUs. My other sister was just speaking about Fisk and was saying that, a lot of the same things that you were saying, similarities in terms of just building it back up and how can you move forward in terms of not thinking so much in the past, holding on to that tradition and legacy, but also creating a new one and moving forward with it. So,
yeah.
Yes.
We have to do something, because my parents are Knoxville College graduates, and of course Knoxville College is it's gone. It's gone. It is no more. And you hate to start to lose good schools that produced good people. I'm not saying my parents are good. I'm just, where would we be with the principals of the schools, or where would we be with the doc? Where would we be if we hadn't had these schools? And you can't, and Fisk being one of them. And Fisk is in danger, as your sister can tell you that, because we just lost another president. This has to stop.
Right. Yes. And speaking of your parents, I know they have both passed on, but you always speak about your parents, your grandparents, and your sister. And I feel like you always speak about them from such a loving place and an honorable place. Have you always, so I lost my mom, and I'm just now getting to a place. She passed away in 2014, and I'm just now getting to a place of understanding that we have, even though she's not here physically, I'm still connected to her. And I'm able to talk about her and talk to her, as opposed to being angry about everything that happened. She was in a car accident, or angry about her death. Now, so how did you get to this point, this place, to be able just to talk openly, freely, and just truthfully about, you know, the passing of your grandparents, your sister, and your parents?
Well, losing grandmother and grandpapa is still hard. And this month, I don't know if you know Marcus Samuelson. He's a chef
Mm-hmm.
in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the guest chef he's the guest editor for Bon Appetit.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus happened to be a fan, and when they invited him to be a guest editor, he called and asked me if I would write a poem for him, because Bon Appetit has never had a poem in it. So the book is really, he did a great job. And I wrote a poem. And actually, I guess I could have called it My Last Thanksgiving, because I know I've done Thanksgivings, but I don't really remember them.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother's phone number was 31593. It's something that I remember all of my life. And I wrote the poem about going home being there where they live for Thanksgiving. And as I said in the poem, it's really, to me, it's the last Thanksgiving. I don't eat turkey, and for a lot of reasons, but I just don't eat turkey. And I think Thanksgiving is stupid, so it doesn't, things like that don't bother me. My father had issues, and so I never appreciated him hitting my mother, so I was lucky to have a grandmother. And when Gus died, I went, of course, when she told me, Mommy called and said that he was sick because he had a stroke. And she called and said, John, I just want you to know your father had a stroke. And I knew immediately that she was calling because she needed something. Because, I didn't care if he had a stroke or not. She would have had to call to say he's dead before it'd be interesting to me. And so I packed up and went home, and I ended up writing a poem in my last book, A Good Cry. I ended up writing a poem, I Married My Mother. And once he died, it was just Mommy and me. And so we always had a good relationship. I think we always liked each other. But I think the main thing about my mother for me was that she recognized I'm not interested in opinions. I'm still not. If I want your opinion, believe me, I will ask. But if I don't ask, I'm totally uninterested. And I think she feels the same way. I must have gotten that from her side of the family. So we got along very well. And losing Mommy was, and remains, it is sad. But losing grandmother, I couldn't tell you my mother's phone number. I really couldn't. I actually, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I cannot tell you the day she died. I don't remember that, but I remember everything about grandmother. But the thing about Mommy, we lived here in Virginia when we had both moved here. I moved here, and brought her with me. But the thing about Mommy was that she got, or whoever it is that gets, a lot of flowers. I always hate that, in lieu of flowers. Don't in lieu of nothing. I'm dead, send me my flowers, damn it. But Mommy had a lot of flowers, and I cut a couple of, how you have and I cut a couple of the vines. Mommy, I know she's been dead about 13 or 14 years. I'd have to look it up for you. But I still, those vines, I put them in a dish, and they're right here in a vase. And they are still, I put clean water in, but they're still living. Wow. So whatever it is with your mom or anything else, it's really something. And they will always, I'm amazed because I'm not good I can grow some things. My okra didn't do well this year, but I'm a pretty good gardener. But those flowers from Mommy's funeral are still with me. And I think I don't know if that helps me or what, and you miss your mother because this is somebody who knows you, and in a way that nobody else will, from inside out. Nobody else, nobody else knows what you know or feels what you feel. So losing your mother is a difficult thing. But then I'm a big fan of spirits, as you probably have guessed. And I just think things are around us. We have to learn to pay attention. We have to learn to hear. We have to learn to feel. We have to learn to let ourselves, sometimes you feel so foolish. You say, well, I'm not going to, You say, well, I'm going to go, no, I don't know. I'm going to go to town. I'm going to go shopping today. And something say, girl, I'm be going shopping. And you say, oh, I'm not going to. And you feel foolish. And then where you were going to go, it ends up, 20 people were shot. and somebody was talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
So you learn to listen to that spirit. Or I'm a cancer. I have cancer. I had lung cancer, and I know. I mean, I said, no, something is wrong. You felt it, and I was very fortunate in that I was going to say but I didn't. But we caught it early. But it was like, no, something. It's like somebody said, no, you need to go see about this. And I did, and my surgeon was a great surgeon. I went to Cincinnati for that, and he took the lung out. But you have to listen to that someone because people are still talking to you.
I was going to say, literally the other day, I was, Mommy, oh, I got it. Like sometimes, or when I do certain things, I'm like, Mommy, is that you? I find myself like, I'm like, okay, you're here. I get it. I see you, I hear you, and I receive it. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
So
it
yes.
means a lot. You have to let yourself, because we come from a people who were torn apart from their family, from their ancestors. And then having gotten here to the United States, we were sold and torn apart yet again. But somehow or another, through our songs
Mm-hmm.
and through our food, actually, because you can always tell where Black people are coming from by what they eat, and
Yes.
it's so funny. You say, oh, how do you fry your chicken? And they say, oh yeah, you from New Orleans, huh? You know exactly how, and all of that is meaningful to us. I think we're great people, and I think that spirit that we have, I think that goes with us. And yeah, you listen to her. You listen to her because she's still looking out for you. She ain't got nothing else to do. She's sit up there and she can meet my mom. They can sit there and have a beer. But they say, how's your girl doing? Well, mine is doing okay today. But she had a problem. Her boyfriend quit her, or something, whatever it is. And they have each other, and that's why we reach out as sorority sisters to each other, so that we can carry on that spirit.
Absolutely agree. Honestly, I feel like that's one of probably my biggest learning lesson in her death is that I learned to communicate, and I just learned death isn't bad and it shouldn't be feared. That's something that I definitely feared, and I was like, oh my gosh. But just having that connection to spirits, and also just with myself, like just paying attention to me, myself, and my body, and just listening, as opposed to tuning out everyone else.
Right.
So yes, I learned a lot through my mom's death. I would give anything for her to be back here, but I also feel like I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They're there with us. You always know that, and
mm-hmm.
you have to let them do their job. And the
Not be
reason why,
stubborn like I am sometimes. Um, so I want to get to the book. So your first poem book, we were just going on and on about the conversation. Make Me Rain is a love poem. So what is your definition of love, and how do you practice it or showcase it daily?
well, like all poets, I'm always in love. That's what poets do. We just always falling in love, and that works because we also have the sense to fall out of love. As I said to my son who was married and now divorced, there's a reason that pencils have erasers, and you can't feel bad about that. That you haven't made a mistake. You have learned something. When you make a wrong turn, you've seen a bunch of houses that you didn't used to see, but then you make another turn and you see something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's driving through the community. But make me rain started because of jazz. I'm a jazz fan, and Make Me Rain is an old jazz tune. And I was driving. I live near Roanoke, and I was driving in Roanoke, and there was just something about it, and I was hearing the rhythm, and I said, "Oh, that's such a great. It's so smooth. I need to write something. How you hear something." And I said, when I get home, I'm gonna write it. But I've gotten to the point that now I know when I got home, by the time I emptied the groceries and petted the dog and did one thing, I would have forgotten. So I ended up pulling over to the side of the road and writing this poem, which is a love poem. You fall in love and you want to hug somebody, but when you get to be my age, I'm 77, you know that being in love, which again, is nothing wrong with it, but being in love it's helping to take care of somebody. It's being there. That's, you gotta, I hope you pick up the Bon Appetit, because that's what my grandparents taught me. Being love is grandmother and grandfather as they grew older, taking care, not just of me, but each other. And he was older than she, of course, and she was the one that was going to make sure, that he could shave, because he was a very, he's a wonderful man, but in many respects vain. You were never going to see Grandpapa without his shave, and he always had his shirt on. And the first thing when I went to live with him that she taught me how to do was to iron his shirt. His name is John Brown. She says, now this is how John Brown likes his shirts. And I couldn't believe it, but she also ironed his shorts. Grandpapa wore cotton shorts, and she creased them. She said, John Brown likes his shorts creased. That was love. And she did it because she wanted him to know. She, on the other hand, did things. He never let her go to, and I laughed about that so much. He never let her go to supermarket, to the market uptown. When I was there, it was an open market on Gay Street in Knoxville, Tennessee. He never let her go because grandmother's a pretty lady. And one of the problems, if you're a pretty Black lady going shopping in an open market, is that one of the farmers is going to say something. And she's going to come back up and say, John Brown, the Eggman said. And so he's going to go up and have to shoot the Eggman because he's not going to have it. The Eggman is then going to come back into the Black community, and he and his friends are going to, So Grandpapa did all of the shopping, but grandmother loved pineapple. And I'll never forget his voice, because they don't, pineapple is in season, but I can always remember him. By the time he came, we lived up on the hill. By the time he got to pretty near the bottom of the hill where she could hear him, he couldn't wait. Her name was Lavinia. He said, Lavinia, they had pineapple. And I could hear something in his voice. And I said, that's what I want to hear. If I'm going to be with someone, that's what I want to hear, that joy that I got you a pineapple.
Yeah, that was beautiful. It's the little things. And like you said, that was their love language,
Yeah.
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 That was beautiful. And you have given voice to so many issues, from racial injustices to the Middle Passage, politics, and just life in general. How do you feel about where we are, and what are you hopeful for the future?
Well, I really, of course, am incredibly proud of Black Lives Matter and the group that started. And those are Black women. Those, you have to remember, those are 3 Black women.
Always Black women.
Oh, I mean, so wonderful. And what they started, what my group, my generation, we did segregation in the United States, and we showed segregation was a bad idea. And we're going to go over to South Africa, and they're going to break down apartheid after following what Martin Luther King, what Rosa, following what Black Americans. But what Black Lives Matter has done, it's all over the globe. And when George Floyd was murdered, that went, and I'll never forget seeing that. I was turning on, of course, I sat there just glued to the television and watching, and the people marching with us, with Black Americans, were in Perth, and I'll never forget that. Perth, Australia, was marching with us. That's what those Black young women put together. So when we ask, what's going to happen or where are we going, one, I think that Trump and all of his little stupid fools are right. We are going to take over, because if there's going to be anything in the United States, anything on this planet that makes sense, it's going to be what Blacks and liberals do. And we are requiring our white friends to do a little better. Our white friends used to say, well, I'm with you, but they're going to have to do more than that. Now they're having to put something on the line. And I think that they are. I think that, well, you look at Joe Biden, I think that, and he says, no, I'm going to run with a Black woman, because I know he got a lot of advice not to do that. You can't win if you're running with a Black woman. He says, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this my way. he's listening to somebody's mother, and of course that's going to do it. So I think what we in the Black community, some of us are worried, and some of us, I look at Ice Cube and them. Cube is crazy and needs to be. He is. I wouldn't buy or pay a penny to go see him. That he was sucking up to Donald Trump because he thought Trump was going to win, and he wanted to be on that side. And that was a damn shame. And we know Kanye West should be hospitalized, that he's crazy. He's crazy as a loon, because you see, there's always going to be somebody that's going to go with the devil. Mm-hmm. But when I look at the youngsters that are coming up, your kid, I don't want to say kids like that, but young people your age, you know the equipment, you know how to run this. I can turn on a computer, but that's about the extent of it. But you're doing that and you're moving on. And I go and I look, I go to bookstores because I write books, but I love to just see how they're being handled. And I look at how many magazines are now having covers of Black women. And then recently I've been noticing Black women, Black big women. And I remember at the time, if you were a big woman, everybody would say, oh, you have to lose some weight. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was, nobody. And now we're seeing Black women that are saying, well, this is just me, and you take it or leave it. So I love what they're doing. And of course, we're having a lot of interracial marriages. And I think that that's really good, because there was always interracial sex. There was nothing new about interracial sex. Mm-hmm. But now we have a group of white men who are saying, well, and I live in Virginia, where we had John Loving and Mildred Loving. And he just didn't want to have sex with Miss Loving. John didn't. He didn't want to just screw Mildred. He wanted to say to the world, this is who I love. Mm-hmm. And so I think that this next generation is opening up their hearts in a different sort of way. They're not afraid to be themselves. And I think that that's incredibly wonderful. They're not afraid of living their own life. I think mm-hmm. that's wonderful. I really do. And I'm very proud. I'm glad that I lived long enough to see that they're singing their own song. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
So what would be your message for the next generation of young Black creatives?
You have to sing your own song. We're back to that. You have to write your own. And I think it's very dangerous. As I talk to my students, I think it's very dangerous, because the question that you will always get, if we were open for questions, somebody would say, well, how do I write it? How do I get a bestseller? Which is one of the really dumb things that you can ever ask, because the only way to do that is that you have to sell some of your stuff. Mm-hmm. And so my, not advice, but what I am most proud of in our community, of Black women particularly, is that most of us are doing what we believe should be done. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all you can do. And I think you have to be very, very careful. I'm very, very fond of a writer. Her name is Renee Watson. And mm-hmm. Renee is wonderful.
Yes.
And I taught Kwame Alexander. Mm-hmm. And I'm so, he's like a literary son. So I am very proud when people listen to themselves, when they are doing what they think should be done. So if you're being creative, then create. You can't worry about, will this get into a museum? Will somebody pay me for it? This is not something you know. All you know is that this is what you want to create. In other words, you have to believe in yourself.
Ooh, I think that was a message right on time for me, because I feel like I'm my own worst critic sometimes. And I'm like, oh, this is good enough. Or I'm thinking, it's great to have the bigger picture in mind, but also small wins. Let's, baby steps, as opposed to, I want to get this in a museum. Okay, but wait, you can't skip the first 10 steps to get there, like you said, and you have to write it first. I'm just sort of thinking ahead. Okay, and my last question, if your entire life was a poem from your catalog, what title would best fit and why?
Oh, maybe Make Me Rain. Simply because nothing can live without water. We can live without food for a long, long time. And we can do any number of things. I have a little fish pond where I live. And the fish pond, of course, was made, we made it, you dug it out. And of course, the the rocks is what was there. You know, the rocks are what defined it. But the rocks were clean, to say there was just nothing on it. But as the water fell on it, eventually the moss grew on the rocks. Who would have thought it? And I'm a space freak, as you know, because we've talked before. And people like me have always said, and I was one of the early ones, there is water on Mars. And I remember people laughed about that. And they say, I said, there's water on Mars. Everybody's like, there's no water on Mars. And now we're growing tomatoes and lettuce on Mars. There is life on Mars, in other words. And I think that, of course, I'm living in a state now that our governor is going to have marijuana become legal. And I'm glad I don't smoke. And if cancer hasn't taught me anything, it said you cannot smoke. But it's good because now somebody can put in the windowsill with just whatever little sunlight that you get and a few seeds and grow. They can grow a number of things, but they can grow, the first thing they'll probably grow will be pot. They'll grow it, and that's good. I mean, I don't suggest that they smoke it. I'm not trying to get anybody into anything, but I'm saying things grow, and what you need to grow is water. And so I think that if I had to come back, because water is everything, and I say that in the poem, water becomes ice, it becomes snow, it becomes, it's wonderful. And you can sit inside and listen to it. There's nothing as wonderful as listening to raindrops. And the raindrops, they'll put you right to sleep. It's just a rhythm.
Oh, absolutely. I live in LA. I'm in Ohio now at my parents' house, but I live in LA, and everyone was so upset. We had like a couple of days where it rained, but the whole summer it was so hot. And I just love sitting on my couch with the door open and just listening to the rain. And everyone was so upset. I'm like, wow, this is great. This is amazing. And then I was leaving, my bedroom window, I'll have that open and I would go to sleep. Like you said, just fall asleep to the rain. And then I was upset when they were like, okay, back to 92 degrees. I'm like, seriously?
There's nothing like rain. I think that, I don't know what comes next for me. I'm always writing. So there is on my computer, uh, what do you call that face thing? The top, there is a folder, and I know that, and I know how to get to a folder. But there's a folder called the new book, and the new book has things that I'm writing that did not get into Make Me Rain, or things like the poem I did for Marcus, the poem I did for Bon Appetit. Some things that don't have any place to go. They have no home. They're going now into the new book, which at 77 says, and it's all right with me, frankly speaking, that I am again changing. I'm learning something about myself. And I'm not afraid of being older. I think it's a good idea. I recommend it. And I'm watching this book grow, and I'm kind of laughing at myself because, you wonder, well, where will it end up? I don't know, but I know it's growing, and that I am the rain that makes it grow. So I'm just happy with that.
Oh, well, I'm happy with this conversation. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.